Most of the behavior of a human being is out of our programming. Most of the things we do is out of the subconscious mind. Otherwise, we would need to relearn how to walk, how to speak, how to, put our shoes on. Everything that we do generally is within that programming. And if we have a new behavior or we want to change a habit, we want to do whatever it is we want to do, that the idea comes into the conscious mind. And then it kind of, goes along this critical mind. There's a little bit of a filter. Is there a congruency between what I want and what my programming is? And if there's something in your programming that is viewing this, because remember, the mind's job is not to make you happy or to give you, all the things that you want. The subconscious brain is only to keep you safe and procreating, really. As a human being through evolution, that's what it's designed to do. Everything else, we do the beautiful things with it.
Welcome to SoulPod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings. Another episode of Soul Podcast. We are going to dive deep into the mysterious nature of the subconscious today. And before we get into our conversation, just a reminder, if you find this podcast helpful or SoulPod helpful, please like, subscribe, comment, send us a message. That helps this small team, this female-founded team, do more and serve more and get this message out there to those who need it. So thank you. And I am joined by a very lovely, powerful person today. She's been everywhere from the operating rooms in Beverly Hills to the hidden corridors of the subconscious. She's spent her life exploring transformation in all of its forms. And after 2 decades of working alongside osteoplastic surgeon, she's shifted from outer healing to inner healing and studied at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute and has devoted her life to the work and art of subconscious transformation. She's been raised in a family that's steeped in intuition, dreams, and metaphysical wisdom, and her path blends the precision of medicine with the mystery of the mind. So today she helps others unlock deep clarity, release old patterns, and reconnect with the highest version of themselves. Welcome to the podcast, Anna. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Crystal. It's such an honor. I love that introduction. Wow. I want to meet me.
Yeah. That's your new bio.
How are you?
I am so good. I'm so good. And I'm excited to dive into this. We've gotten a lot of questions on the podcast around dreams. So we will certainly get into that conversation in a bit. But before we do, I would love to kind of go back in time a little bit to your early days. And you mentioned that you learned how to self-hypnotize before you really knew what that was. So could you kind of walk us through that early connection with hypnosis?
Of course. So, as long as I can remember, I've had a fascination with the mind, with what I didn't even realize that I had a fascination with the mind. I just knew I had a fascination with what are we? Who are we? What is consciousness? And that of course leads you down a path, and here we are. I think about maybe 8, 9 years old, at a time where I shouldn't have been already, if I can use that word should, which I don't like to use, but I was still wetting my bed. And I was frustrated. I was embarrassed. And I remember our family was moving cross country. We were traveling from New York to California. And that was, for some reason, and even in my 8, 9-year-old mind, that was like such a fear to be in the car, and what are they going to do, and what if, what if, all the what ifs that we like to live with. And so somehow I intuitively every night before I was going to sleep would just repeat a mantra. I would just get, I'm going to wake up if I need to go to the bathroom. I'm going to wake up if I'm going to go to the bathroom. And I just kept repeating it and repeating it. And I just kept repeating it to myself, almost in a hypnotic sense, kind of in that, now what we learn is that magic hour, right at your bedtime, right when your mind is most open, most suggestible. And it really, after going to doctors, after my mom would say, is there something wrong with her? Is there, it really just kind of started there, and I didn't even put the two together until I started getting into hypnotherapy. That just kind of went away. I just started living life, everything kind of kept going and going. And then when I started getting into hypnotherapy, I connected the dots, and it was a pretty interesting, thing to uncover.
It's fascinating. And I think a lot of people are trying to find ways to really transform their reality through language and intention, which it seems like that's what hypnosis is on some level. So maybe you could kind of walk us through, how do you view hypnosis and its interaction with the subconscious?
Absolutely. So, to begin, I would like to just kind of take it back to the very basics. Our mind is, from the moment that we're born, we're a blank slate. So there's no information. From about 0 until 8, we start taking in information. We start, this is good, this is bad, this is a dog, this is a cat. We just start programming, right? And usually our primary caregiver, most of the time it's our moms, they give us, all of this information. Because the prefrontal cortex isn't there yet, essentially, we don't even have the ability to reason, to have logic and all of that. We're just taking in information. We're just basically a sponge.
Mm.
Then and that's from about 0 until 8 years old. And that starts building that subconscious mind. The only thing that we're born with is what we call the primitive mind. And the primitive mind is what holds our fight or flight reflex, fight, flight, and fawn, also freeze. And so after about 8, 9 years old, that's when the conscious mind starts coming on board. That's when a human being starts developing that, the logic, the reasoning, the willpower, the decision making. All of that is in that prefrontal cortex. All of that is in that in that conscious mind. The issues come in is that most of the behavior of a human being is out of our programming. Most of the things we do is out of the subconscious mind. When we wake up, otherwise we would need to relearn how to walk, how to speak, how to, put our shoes on, everything that we do generally is within that programming, within the subconscious mind. And if we have a new behavior, or we want to change a habit, we want to do whatever it is we want to do, that the idea comes into the conscious mind. And then it kind of, goes along you can call it a filter almost, this critical mind, there's a little bit of a filter. Is there a congruency between what I want and what my programming is? And if there's something in your programming that is viewing this, because remember, the mind's job is not to make you happy or to give you, all the things that you want. The subconscious brain is only to keep you safe and procreating, really, as a human being through evolution. That's what it's designed to do. Everything else, we do the beautiful things with it. And so because the only thing it operates on is a known and an unknown, if there's anything you're introducing to that subconscious mind that is an unknown can be even something as great for you as taking on a new habit, like working out. I want to go to the gym. Why do I want to go, but I keep fighting myself? That's self-sabotage. Subconscious mind is a whopping about 88% of our brain power. And then the conscious mind is only about 12, if we can kind of, roughly divide that up that way. And so when you look at that, and you look at that division between what our programming is and what our desires, what our, willpower and all of that, that's why we tend to kind of run up against the wall. We tend to get stuck, because no matter how much we want to do something, what our programming is dictates if it's going to get done or not. So hypnotherapy, essentially, we work with that programming. We work symptomatically, whereas a talk therapist will spend years sometimes, in therapy and really kind of trying to get to the root cause, which we also do as a hypnotherapist. I also do that, but it's not as critical to find out root cause because we're working with symptoms. So I'm working with your anxiety. I'm working with your whatever the trigger is. I'm working with the sleep, the procrastination, the lack of confidence, whatever those things are. That's what we're working with because those things are within that subconscious mind, within that 88%.
I love that explanation. That really makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense that the practices or modalities and even meditation is very much in interaction and relationship with the subconscious mind. If that's such a huge chunk of our cognitive capacity, then talk therapy certainly obviously has its place, but it's working with that more of that conscious mind, which is that 12% that you're talking about. So it's kind
Absolutely.
of, I was just thinking that it was really interesting of like, okay, what part of the mind are we working with? And working with all parts has great value, but it's really interesting to think of it that way. I'm curious, you mentioned habit formation, and I know that that's something top of a lot of people's minds, especially when they're trying to do things like you mentioned, like go to the gym or sit down in the morning and meditate. This is why that habit formation can feel like it's so much more challenging than it should be. But that's because we're literally rewiring the subconscious mind and those already ingrained neural pathways. So I wonder if there's anything else you could share with us about the habit formation part of it.
Well, to really kind of to simplify, I like to simplify things. I like to
I
kind
love
of
it.
distill things down. So if you think of a habit almost like, a behavior, a habit, think of it like a Velcro that is being attached to something. And those are the neural pathways. Those are those neural pathways that connect and because they're so ingrained already that we don't even think about it. We don't think of how to tie our shoes, how to brush our teeth. We just do it. Now, if you wanted to tie your shoe instead of the right foot, start with the left, you would have to interrupt that somewhere between the desire to do something, the action, and the reward, which is the behavior. You would have to have an interruption. So there's different exercises that we would do to kind of work with that three-step process, to help you change the behavior. But essentially, everything is a habit. So that Velcro that you stuck, that neural pathway that stuck, we just need to, because the brain doesn't work in negatives. I can't just tell you don't do it or go to the gym or just
Mm,
stop doing it, right? I have to give you a replacement behavior. The brain works really well with replacements. So the minute I tell you don't sit on the couch and eat cookies, but instead sit on the couch and twiddle your thumbs. You know what I mean? And as an
yeah.
example, the brain is like, oh, okay, initially it's going to be a difficult thing to do. But those neural pathways, once they wire together, once they fire together, they're going to wire together. So the more that
Hmm.
you fire them together, the more you repeat that behavior, the more they're going to rewire. And then it becomes a habit. Then it's a new behavior, a new habit formed. So it's really about identifying because our all of our behavior works on a reward on a like that negative and positive, right? So if we're always attracted towards any kind of a reward system, if I can call it that, but any kind of anything, any pleasure we're attracted to, obviously, and then
Mm.
anything that is potentially negative we're refrain from. That's because the brain doesn't want anything that is unknown. It doesn't want even if it's good for you, because the brain doesn't know good or bad. It's just, so it doesn't realize that going to the gym is a good new habit. It's thinking, wow, it's something new, potentially hard work. No.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to know about your brain. It's not looking to make you happy. It's only looking out for your survival. And even the good
Also
things.
not looking to me, I'm sorry to jump in, but it's
Mm,
also not anything wrong. Like we always try to think that there's something wrong with us because it's difficult to do something or difficult to change a pattern. But when you learn how to work with something and you learn that this is the way we are designed, this is the way that we are actually designed to do for a reason, you're able to, you're able to walk into the closet and turn on the light, and the pair of pants is no longer the boogeyman.
I love that. I love the analogy of turning on a light. Yeah, it makes so much sense that the habit side of it is less about telling yourself to not do something and more about replacing it. And and a lot of times when I'm talking about building the meditative habit, we're talking about like instead of telling yourself I've got to meditate this morning, and it's like there's a like a to-do list type of approach to it, that doesn't tend to work as well. And I usually tell people to connect with their why, which is always something big, emotional, and powerful. It's like, wait, why would you sit on the cushion after you brush your teeth? And
Yeah.
that seems to be something that, at least for me in my experience too, has been much more of a driver than, oh, I need to check this box. And the brain's like, no, you want to go eat your breakfast. You want to sleep in.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's amazing, because that's exactly what I tell my clients. You always want to give your brain, it just works that way. It's how it works. You want to give it a replacement.
Mm.
If I tell you don't think of the blue elephant, what's the first thing on your
Oh my
mind?
gosh, blue elephant. Yeah.
So we have to just understand how it works, and then we're able to work with it, and then we're able to allow for it to do magic for us.
I would love to hear, I mean, as much as you can share, what kind of transformations you tend to see in people who apply this modality and this work to their lives. We've mentioned, like if you're a kid and you're wetting the bed, and, like you said, you're not saying, don't wet the bed, don't wet the bed. You're saying, I'm going to wake up right when I need to go to
Mhm.
the bathroom. So I'm just curious, from what you're seeing in your experience, what does this change for people?
Wow. That is such a loaded question, Crystal, because it's once we understand this, I mean, I can even tell you personally what it has changed for me. It
Mm,
has changed. So first of all, it completely, before my mom is passed now, but it completely transformed how I understand her, and I understood the dynamic between us. It changes your perspective not only on why people act certain ways, but if you're ready and willing to look at yourself, which is the first thing you need to do, in any kind of an equation, is really look at what can I fix, what can I look at, what can I
mm,
pay attention to, So these things really help you look at yourself in such a way, in such a powerful way, and understand it. And when you talk about transformation, I mean, as far as hypnotherapy, I think there's over like 140 that are like quote unquote, in scope things that hypnotherapy is warranted for. But
mhm,
because we're an we're a prism, we're a diamond. We're not just one side. So you work, I have somebody, it's never what somebody came in with. So they'll come in to work on their anxiety, but their whole life is transformed, because now they've worked on their anxiety. Now they have a little bit of a different relationship with their husband. Now they're starting to uncover that they can sleep a little bit better. Now their motivation is a little better. So, things that they didn't even realize were going to be affected tend to be affected, because this works on that subconscious level. And because it's subconscious, it's underneath
mm,
awareness. You're not even really aware that sometimes you don't even know what you need to work on. You just know that you're not happy. You just know that you keep repeating certain patterns. And then as you start peeling those layers, you start realizing, oh, that's what I needed to really work on. Or, oh, it's really because I went through this, and this with a younger brother, or whatever it may be, So it's
mm, mhm.
really, really powerful, because you never really know what is going to be transformed until you start diving into the work and really uncovering your own layers.
I call it the infinite onion, and there's so many similarities to spiritual work here. It's like there's symptoms on the surface, but the root cause or the energetic cause or even a past life cause is slowly revealed over time, and it's I think important, my experience, that it is that way because our capacity to handle and integrate and experience and reveal more and integrate more. It's a stepwise process. So it makes sense that there's kind of layers to that unfolding, which is really beautiful. I'm curious, and we haven't talked about this
Air.
before. Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
it's such a fascinating when you start peeling at those layers and you start really getting underneath that. That's part of my favorite, one of my favorite things about doing this work is being able to play detective, and really
Yeah.
kind of get in and see and uncover things, and I get very fired up about talking about it.
Yeah, there's so much curiosity. It's like, oh, how did this connect to that? And you dial up that light of awareness, and there's a whole new realm to experience.
Yeah,
Um, I'm curious, and this might not be necessarily in your practice, but do past lives ever come up in hypnosis sessions?
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, I thought
Absolutely.
so. I thought
Of
maybe.
course, past life regret, that's actually partly why I got into this because again, consciousness, what are we? Who are we? What is a human being? What happens to us after, once we die? All of those questions were what brought me to hypnotherapy and to understand that it's all connected. And past lives, when you say that this is the modalities are similar, all of these we're the human being. Once you start getting into awareness, once you start getting into consciousness, it's kind of like saying, we're in the kitchen and we're making a cake. It's all part of the same thing, like
Yeah.
yes, you
Yeah.
might, you this time you might need a knife and the next time a fork, but at the end of the day, these are all kitchen tools and it's all to get you that meal, so it's really the similar thing. It's we're whether you're talking about meditation, whether you're talking about guided meditation, whether you're talking about there is a difference between meditation and guided meditation and hypnotherapy, but there are a lot of similarities as well. So they are
Mm.
very similar in many ways.
I wonder, is there anything that you can share about what you've learned about past lives? And like you mentioned, like who are we as humans? That's come forward for you since doing this work.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's a loaded question. Personally, I have not been seeing a lot of clients with past life regressions. My practice mostly revolves around more this life.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although, even
We've got a
though
lot to
I actually,
handle in this life.
well, we've got, that's for sure. But even though I actually, like I said, that's why I thought that I would be getting into this work for that, and it really kind
Mhm.
of went into a whole other direction, which I'm really, really happy about. But I would love to dive into it more. So,
Mm.
next episode.
Next episode. Yeah, I've had some really personally interesting experiences. I've only done a couple in my life, but there was certainly a before and after that experience of diving into a past life, which I believe is just well, it's all happening now. So it's not really
Yeah, yeah.
it's fractals of experience across space and time, but it's so interesting. So I know this is a question that our listeners have that I'm so excited to talk to you about is dreams. And dreams and the subconscious mind, they kind of go hand in hand. And so maybe to start, what do you view dreams as? What do you think dreams are?
So yeah, dreams, that dreams are a huge, huge part of my practice and part of my life. And they've always been a part of my life. As I've mentioned to you before, I grew up around a family that always dissected dreams. I grew up a little bit differently than what I was trained in, but this is the beauty of putting different, ways of looking at things together. So, my family looked at it more like symbolically, what you saw, what it could mean. You saw, let's say you saw teeth. Everybody hears of the teeth falling out or, those kind of dreams. Um, there's the idea of like Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung. They look at dreams more static, like they're symbolic meaning. There
Right.
each thing kind of stands for something. Freud was more wish fulfillment and what is being hidden, something being hidden. Carl Jung was more the opposite. He was more in that mythical realm. He kind of was more, things came to you more in like archetypes, and things, the wise man and things like that. I was trained more that it's very, very individual. So it's not,
Mm,
they're not static, they're dynamic. So they're always changing. Every dream is different depending
hmm.
on the dreamer. So, to you, a dog might be your best friend. To me, if it bit me, then it's an enemy. So the way that
Right.
I was trained in dissecting it, you don't have to memorize the symbols necessarily. What you have to do is learn how to pick apart the things that the dreamer is dreaming. So the first thing is we would say it's basically the purpose of the dreams. Also, one is for instance, Carl Jung thought it was more to kind of foster individualism, to start like bring yourself about, really come into yourself. Freud was more reveal hidden meanings in what you're wishful thinking, things like that. For my practice, I look at dreams more as a venting process. So to me, the way that I was trained, dreams are more to act out, vent out, process. That's why we have the tonic motor inhibition where we don't move so that we can actually, dream paralysis essentially. Um, you know,
Mm,
if we didn't have dream paralysis, we would be running in our dreams, we'd be jumping off the bed. So we essentially get dream paralysis, we muscle paralysis in order to process all the dreams. So dreams are basically, the way that I use dreams is to see what the dreamer is trying to vent out. And that a
mm,
lot of times will tell me where in the healing process we are. So depending, there's a series of questions that I always ask. The first is, what stage of the night was the dream? So I'll
ah,
I'll find out, like when you first fall asleep, it's more like the processing. You're kind of going through and, going through the day, going through what happened. Your brain kind of just processes everything through. In that middle of the night, when you're in that deepest part of your sleep, it's more when your brain just rests, does more that predictive stage, we call it. It's like the brain likes to make sense of things and kind of, because we're meaning making machines, where our
hmm.
brain likes to make meaning of things. Our brain kind of puts things in boxes and shells, so to speak, and tries to kind of make sense of things. And then right before we wake up, we call it the venting stage. With the venting stage is for the brain to kind of process through and release a lot of things, to release whatever it is that is in our mind, because all day long we're just taking in information, right? We're just taking in message units, we call them. We're just taking it in, taking it in, taking it in. And if we don't sleep, if we don't vent it out, if we don't process out that information, we would literally lose our mind.
Mm,
And so that is the purpose and the reason for dreaming. Dreaming, they found, is actually as critical as sleeping. They've done sleep
hmm.
studies that they've had people, one group would be sleeping, deprived of sleep, and the other one, they could sleep but they can't actually dream. They, every time they would start seeing the rapid eye movement or start seeing that their mind is going into that cycle of dreaming, they would wake them up. And they realized that and then the third group couldn't, they were regular sleepers, and they realized that the groups that didn't sleep at all and the group that was not allowed to dream were exactly in the same deficiency.
Oh, interesting. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
So, not dreaming can have as big an impact as not sleeping. Is that
As
right?
not sleeping, which we can go
Yeah.
longer not eating than not sleeping.
Wow. So, I know we'll get some questions about this. So, if somebody's not dreaming, what do you think is typically going on with the subconscious in
So
that
we
case?
think we're not dreaming, but we just typically don't remember them. We're always dreaming. We just either don't remember them, or they're really like kind of small little flashes processing through. And, many times, I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've either heard or even myself, I'm dreaming and I'm like, okay, I know I need to remember this. This is a good one.
Yeah, I know. Been there.
This is a good one. And then in
You're
the
like, I
morning,
understand the nature of the universe. And then you're like, I have to
and then
remember
it's
when I
gone.
get
And then it's like, oh God.
that. Isn't
So,
that yeah, I think a lot of people can relate. I would love to ask you about sleep paralysis as well. I've never personally experienced it, but I know many people do. And in my experience, there tends to be, usually some sort of spiritual component as well. And, a lot of times you hear something similar. It's like somebody seeing something in the room and not able to move, and there's a lot of fear. And I'm curious what your work has taught you about sleep paralysis.
So, exactly what you just said. Same thing.
Yeah.
I hear anybody that has ever experienced sleep paralysis, it comes with a degree of a lot of fear. And whether
Hmm.
they see something or whether they just feel the fear or this like dread of not being it, because it means just the feeling itself, I think, of
Yeah.
not being able to move, you're kind of alert and awake, but you're not. And that in itself is terrifying. So, um, I think that it's called tonic motor inhibition. Basically, it's the body's way of, like I said, it's the way that it's what happens to us when we sleep, so that we can process, so that when we're running in our sleep, when we're throwing, when we're punching, when we're fighting, that monster,
We're
we're
not
not
doing it in our bed next to our partner.
exactly, you know. So we all go into a sleep paralysis. The question is, do we have consciousness seep through that stage?
Mm.
That's the question. And kind of the same, that's part of the question that I ask my clients when when we're looking into dreams is the dream physiological, or is it psychological? In other words, was there a leaky roof and you were feeling, hearing something dripping, and then you're thinking the water, that the ocean is, what I'm saying? Were you
Yeah. Yeah.
asleep, but somehow your consciousness was tuning into something literal in the waking world? Or were you actually not? Same thing with the sleep paralysis. Is it that you are actually somewhat awake and you're not able to move, so your consciousness is somewhat there, somewhat asleep? Or
Mm.
is it, and your body is just in that sleep state? Is it that it couldn't, that's the interesting question, is that, when you're in sleep paralysis, you're kind of awake, but you think you're
Yeah.
sleeping still, or the opposite. You're supposed to be having that when you're asleep. That's why you don't move. You're
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
not be moving when you're asleep, but your consciousness is awake. So that's where it's scary.
That makes a lot of sense. And what about lucid dreaming? I know we have I know we have people that are experimenting with lucid dreaming, and basically for you, what is lucid dreaming? Maybe we can start with a
I,
definition.
I will start with lucid dreaming. It's being aware, being dreaming, but consciously being aware that you're in a dream, and somehow being able to guide that dream. And
Hmm.
and I think there are stages of it, really. I think that some people can just be like me, for instance. I can be in a dream, know I'm in a dream, know that I'm dreaming it, but not be able to do anything within it. So I have a consciousness. I know that I know that I'm
Yeah.
dreaming. So that I'm sleeping and I'm dreaming, but I'm completely a participant in the dream. So I'm not able to consciously do anything within it. Some people that are lucid dreamers are really, and I think it takes practice. I think that, from what I understand,
Yeah.
it takes practice. You have to really kind of, as you're going to sleep, tell yourself, do the mantras, really work on that. And even sometimes it's even, I've heard different tricks of being able to look for your hand. If you can move your hand in your dream, connect the hand movement. If you're moving your hand, that means you're consciously doing something to your body while you're sleeping. And
Mm.
that's how you start training yourself. So there's different techniques of being able to lucid dream. I think it's partly that it's that consciousness that's kind of half asleep, half awake, and some people just get really good at guiding that consciousness.
Which is really interesting in this other realm. Yeah, I've had
That was me.
what's that?
I said, I wish I can guide my dreams like that. That's a really an
That's
amazing.
yeah, that sounds like the next level to lucid dreaming. And for me, it's the dream state has been really interesting, and it's changed as I have awakened my consciousness over the years. And there is some element, and I can kind of tell a difference between like a dream and this other experience, which I don't know if you call it astral travel or not, but I usually have two instances where it happens and it's recurring kind of situations. But one of them is going into like old homes, and for years, I've had this recurring dream of it's different types of homes. I know that there's ghost or disembodied consciousness is what I call it. And I get called into it and I'm like, I'm too scared. And then I wake up. This happens all the time. And I had a breakthrough in that dream the other week, which was really interesting. I went into the home for the first time and I met this ghost, young woman in the attic. And she shared with me, it's almost like I lived her life through her eyes very quickly, but I felt everything. It almost
Wow.
felt like a life review for someone else. And she shared with me, and she had had a very loving relationship with another woman. And I was like, wow, I get it. Like, I get why you stayed behind. This love
Yeah.
is so intense. And it was so interesting because then I was talking to her. I was like, but this isn't life. What you're living now is only partial. And it almost felt like I was talking to like a toddler consciousness. Like it wasn't quite fully formed. It was only able to kind of grasp onto very broad concepts. And then all these other ghosts showed up in the home, like dozens. And I was giving them a workshop on how to turn that love or their compulsion that they'd had in their disembodied state, turn it inwards into themselves, this love. They could really grasp that concept. And then I watched each of them turn into light and move on into the next dimension of experience. And it was so interesting to have experienced that in the sleep state. I'm still integrating that, but it felt like something else. So not knowing exactly what that is, but
Do you remember when that dream was? Do you remember if that was right when you were trying to wake up, or like in a deeper sense of a sleep?
oh, I can't remember. But I did wake up after it. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool.
And you said it's a recurring dream that, because we
The
have
first
recurring
part, the
dreams
first part was always recurring, but I never
until
went
you
into the
finally
home.
went in.
Yeah. I know. I see your gears turning.
Yeah. They're totally turning. I'm like going in, and because so this is what I would say. If you were my
Mm.
client, what I would do is I would literally take a piece of paper and I would start for asking some questions, and I would start asking questions. I would start asking, what is the emotion in the dream? What was the emotion? Because at the end of the day, what
Mm.
you saw, how do you feel about these disembodied, spirits? How do you feel about the home? How do you feel about, a lot of times what we see and who we see, it's to process out something, some emotion in you.
Mm.
What was the timing of the dream? Did this home, was it a specific timing? Like, can you associate it with a time in your life when you were a teenager, or a time in your life when you were a little girl? When you talk about, it was as if I was talking to a toddler, energy. Was this toddler energy somebody who was around your age? Were you around that age too, or were you this age that you are now? So there were
Mm. Mhm.
different questions that we would ask, and then based on what we get, we would see, first of all, what part of the dream is literal. So is there anything in the dream that was literal? Is there any part of that, the content we would break up, literal versus symbolic, and then depending on what that content is and how your emotions are tied to them, we would see what it is that your subconscious mind is trying to vent out, what it is that it's
Mm.
trying to process out. And with that information, a lot of times I use that to then guide somebody into hypnosis, because whatever their mind is, that dream that you just described, your subconscious mind came up with that. So that in itself is going to be gold for healing for you. So whatever
Mm.
information you need to heal with is in that dream.
And that's where, I might push back on that a little bit. Because I think there's maybe another possibility, and it could also be true. But in my experience, there are experiences in the dream state that almost feel like not necessarily a dream, and almost like this astral traveling experience.
Absolutely. Those are different than dreams. I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that there's just like visitations. I personally believe, and that comes down to beliefs because not everybody has this belief, but
totally. Yeah.
I believe personally that dreams are dreams, and that's your
Mm,
subconscious mind communicating. But I also believe there's other things when we sleep. I believe that there's astral travel. I believe that there's
mm,
dream visitations. Dream visitations are
mm-hmm.
very different than dreams. Dream visitations are very often won't have, like for instance, if you have somebody in a dream that is in a visitation, it's so specific, so vivid.
Mm-hmm.
Details, you see details, you feel things. A dream is often very, it's like the subconscious. It's very,
Mm-hmm.
it's images, it can be
Buttery.
watery, not making really
Yeah,
cohesive sense, but
yeah.
visitation is it's feeling. It's tangible. You can feel
Mm.
it, you can almost smell it and taste it. It's very tangible.
Yeah, and I know that that's been certainly something that's happened in my family and in my personal experience too, are those visitation dreams, which are
Yeah, I've had
very,
one too, and it's very powerful.
very powerful. I remember my grandmother shortly after her death. It was very simple but extremely vivid. To your point, it was just her, looked like she was 40, beautiful, and it was like blues and this, and I was it was really powerful, and I know that's happened from other people that I know too.
And I bet you that those visitations you're going to remember for the details for the rest of your life, whereas
Yeah,
dreams
that's true.
you forget.
Yeah, it's very vivid. It kind of sticks with you.
It sticks with you, not because you've had dreams that are vivid too, but they don't,
Mm,
they don't
hmm
stick
hmm
as like the visitations do. They tend to be really because I don't know what it is. It's like they stamp a mark on you, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a deeper experience.
Hmm.
So I'm curious what you think. There's so much change happening on the planet right now, and there's so much healing that's needed. And I love that you mentioned that at the beginning about it really starts with you first. And I say the exact same thing. If you want to heal the world, you got to start with healing yourself. And that is such a gift to the world, because if we all are one, which we are, then that healing is quite literally healing for the collective. And I'm wondering how you see this moving forward, as humans need more of these modalities and this access. Is there anything that comes to mind for what you think people need the most at this time?
That's a great question. I wish I had the answer. You know,
Don't we all?
I really do wish I
Yeah.
had. I think that really we just all need to get out of our own way, and really
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
we tend to think we do have all the answers. I think that human beings tend to corner ourselves, put ourselves in a corner and and
Mm,
and get really, really stuck on a certain emotion, on a certain feeling. And I think with the world and with our universe changing as much as it's changing, I think it's really important to be fluid. I think flexibility and being fluid is really the best advice I can give anybody. You have to stand up for something, yes, but at the same time, if you're not flexible, then you're going to be completely. That's where all the anxiety comes from, is by
mm,
trying to control everything. Trying to control outcomes, people, situations, and so I would say that I think our world is really just needs to get out of our own way and
mm.
more compassion. A little bit more
Yeah.
compassion for the next person and oh God, when I think of the word compassion and where everything is these days, we can have a whole other hour of conversation on that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I think harkening back to what you said earlier, that such a large amount of our mind is subconscious. The mere fact of knowing that most people and ourselves are run by our programming
Hmm.
is such a humbling thing to know about this human condition. And I think that's such a powerful thing to know, because it does lend itself to compassion. Like, oh my gosh, they have their patterns, and sending them so much compassion. And, compassion is both that empathy, which is a superpower, and the desire to help. and to heal. And that goes for yourself as well as others. So I love that you mentioned that. Um, at the end here, I like to do a couple rapid fire questions that we ask all of our guests. And so the first question is, and I think this is just fantastic for you in particular, what's one belief that you've held that you no longer believe?
That we're not, that we're not a soul having a human experience. I used to believe in the whole, knowing what happens to us. That's what brought me to this work, is the doubting. But I think I'm every single day, and the more I do this work, the more that I realize that, first of all, we are energy, and energy, you've heard the cliche, doesn't die. And
Mm,
so because we transform, and because I've now learned and seen and experienced so much beauty with just humans, the human spirit, the consciousness, awareness. So that really, that's something I believe now that I didn't believe before. I think
mm,
before I kind of believed it, now I know it.
huge, huge difference. And what is a similar line of thought here, but what is consciousness in how's that defined in your mind?
You tell me.
I have some thoughts, but
You tell me. I think consciousness is such a big word that I can't even begin to put it into words. It's the
that's fair.
human, it's love, it's compassion, it's
Mm,
awareness, it's so many different things. My whole reason for getting into this work was to find out what is consciousness.
oh, yes.
What happens to consciousness? We do know now that it doesn't live in the brain, it doesn't live in the heart, it doesn't so where is it, and what happens
Mm,
to it? And now that they've measured when a human dies, that there's actual, that whatever ounces of weight that leaves when at the moment that you die, you know what is that? So
mm.
I don't know. I don't know, but I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to find out.
Yeah, you and I are similar. That's certainly been my big curiosity. Um, and for you, what is source, God, or oneness, if anything?
That's probably back to consciousness and awareness.
Mm-hmm. 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 Beautiful. And if it were 100 years in the future, what would you hope for humanity?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. I don't know. What would I hope for? I mean, love. Really, just
Yeah.
peace. It sounds so simple and cliche. Like I
Mm.
feel like I'm, Miss America standing there going, I want peace for the whole world, but like it really feels that way, especially I think now more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing so much going on in the world, you just want to kind of that whole thing about we're all one, yes, we really are one. We really are.
Mm.
We think we are so different. We think we experience things so differently, but we're exactly the same. We are exactly the same, just walking different streets, you know.
100%, 100%. Well, thank you, Anna, for sharing your wisdom, your learnings, your energy with us today. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. This has been really fun.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody, all of you light beings, next time.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.